Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music. And today I'm here with Diane Lutz, who's much better known as Freyah. She's fresh off the release of her debut album, Run Wild, and we are thrilled to have her on today. Diane, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Austin. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Of course, of course. Before we get into the music, I just got to say that I've been listening to the album over and over, and it is fantastic. You've done an incredible job on
Ah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
it. Yeah. The first thing I want to know is the influences that inspired its creation.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you, there is this crazy cool Spotify playlist called Swagger. Are you familiar
Okay.
with it by
I
any
am not.
chance?
Tell me
Gosh,
more.
it's so good. It's so good. So the I don't know. I come from a pop background. Everything I've ever recorded or written in the past has always been pop and has always been with kind of like this end result to be playable on the radio, let's say. But it never truly felt really genuine to my soul. It didn't speak to me. And then I found this playlist on Spotify, or actually one of my producers, Machine, the producer, tipped me off. He's like, "Oh, listen to this playlist. I think you're going to like it." There are just some really amazing, gritty sounding artists on there that really bring it. And so this was a very big departure for me. This album was to come
Mhm.
from, I don't know if you're familiar with Dorothy. I think she's pretty big in LA.
I'm not
Um,
actually. What kind of music is it?
it's rock. It's
Oh, okay.
yeah, definitely look her up. She's got it's rock in the modern age, which I felt like kind of had disappeared. Like we've kind of moved into a hip hop kind of place. There's lots of pop, there always will
Mhm.
be. EDM is really popular, but this was I feel like I found that sound that I've been craving to listen to. And so I got very inspired by her. ZZ Ward too. Are you familiar with ZZ
Yeah, I
Ward?
am. Very good.
I love her. Jill Andrews, another
Mhm.
of my favorites. Like really these, and I hadn't heard of these artists before. They just kind of surfaced for me through this playlist.
Yeah, I
So
gotta check this playlist.
yes,
It's called
thank you so much.
Swagger, you said?
It's called Swagger. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. I totally love
Awesome.
it.
All
Yeah.
right,
So
I'm
some of
definitely gonna check that out.
my
So basically
influences.
that's inspiring the sound.
100%. Yep. There's
Sweet.
there's grit. There's really there's a lot of creative production too.
Mhm.
Lots of just metallic sounds. There's a lot of stomp clap in there. I have a little bit of that in my album as well. So definitely, definitely my album's a little head nod to that playlist here and
Awesome.
there.
Well, throughout the album, there was a pretty grand sound in terms of like instrumentation and obviously your vocals. But I want to hear a little bit about the band and who, studio musician wise, who's backing you up.
Yeah, so basically the band doesn't exist yet. So let's talk about this. Right
Please.
before, so all right, let me back up a tiny bit. So um I used a decade ago, I was really heavily involved in music, writing an album and really excited and charging forward. And things kind of happened in my personal life. My mom was sick. There were lots of things, and it really just kind of put a halt to everything I was working on. So I had to take pause and step back. um, that pause lasted way too long. There was a whole decade of not writing music. And then I kind of just said, oh, well, I guess I just don't write music anymore. And about 2 summers ago, it was summer of 2019, I was talking to a friend, Brian Steele, and he said to me, what do you mean what do you mean you don't write music anymore? If you used to write music, you write music. And I'm like, I don't know about that, I'm not inspired anymore. And he was like, stop with the inspiration, just sit down like it's a job and write it. And I was like, all right. And I wrote some really, really bad songs for about 3 months. I
Hey, at
was
least you can be honest with yourself.
Yeah, they were bad. I was dusting off cobwebs, really like really getting into myself. Another one of my friends, Aaron Stanulus, was like a big inspiration to try to get me to push forward. And I told him, I was like, I'm really struggling with this. And he was like, just write the songs from beginning to end, even if they're terrible. Finish those songs, get them done. It's good for the creative process. And between the two of them, they were 100% correct. Because by the time, I don't know, that was maybe July-ish. By the time in like
Mhm.
October of 2019 rolled around, I was cruising. Like I was writing a song a day. They were
Oh,
just
wow.
pouring out of me. And you can tell the difference. You know, I mean, artists, we're also self-deprecating. Oh, my songs, you know, it's hard.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
It is. But I have this, but you know when you're onto something with some of those songs. And so I was able to, I maybe wrote like 30 songs during that time period and pulled out what I thought maybe were the top 7 of them that would be, that I'd want to share with other people. So anyway, so where did the artist come from? So I'm like talking to everybody like, yeah, let's get the band together. I've been playing in bands for years. So I have a network of musicians. That's insane. It's like a big, awesome spider web. I'm so lucky. And started to get ready to put the band together, and COVID happened. And I don't know, everything just stopped and everyone stopped, and we couldn't do things like we could anymore. We couldn't get together. We couldn't you know the story. I don't have to retell it.
Of course.
Yeah. So I mean, long story short, I think it was June now, fast forward June of last year, I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this album just because of COVID.
Right.
I'm going to make this happen. So what I had abandoned in March, I picked back up in June, and I was like, let's get this done. I don't need to have the exact band in place. Let me get the studio musicians. Let me get anybody I know who I can help put this together completely remotely. So the rest of the remainder, nothing was pretty much even started by that point.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of that album we put together, just getting on Zoom and being like, we need it to sound like this. Let's make it sound like this. Let's do this. And just kicking things back and forth to each other. So I don't have Pro Tools, but I would send my GarageBand session over to someone who has Pro Tools. It totally does. Drops right into place.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of that going back and forth. So people who played on my album, again, Aaron Stanulus, he's like a one-man band. You need an instrument, he can play it. I actually didn't ask him to play flute, but he probably could, I don't know. And I do play, so there's a little bit of me on there. I'm just probably not like your studio quality musician, but I need to dedicate a little more time to it. But I play piano and I play guitar. I grew up playing piano since I was like 3 years old. So music has always been with me. But anyway, so Aaron Stanulus played on the album. He's going to be playing with me live. Mike Sorrentino, he played drums on my album on Set It On Fire. And Aaron's brother actually played drums on Run Wild also.
Awesome.
Yeah, lots of good people. We had some, you know, and it was tough because, you know, the song Set It On Fire.
Mm-hmm.
That was so tough to do remotely. We were really just like kind of working with each other on that. JD Leonard and Lenny Rosillo were 2 other guys, bass player, and JD Leonard's a country guy, and we tried to like pull together so they gave some creative input in there as well. So
you've been keeping busy over there.
Totally. Yep.
And I wanted to say, like, you've obviously been so busy this year in terms of creating and making an album and releasing it. What are you sort of doing to like decompress, or are you still in the basking in it sort of stage?
Yeah, decompression. Okay, so I did take a week off last week, hence my terrible response time on emails, by the way. But yeah, I did take a week off last week just to kind of chill. But you know, I'm back at it now, just trying to get the music out there. And you know, listen, for an unknown artist, you know, I have like 12,000, almost 13,000 streams on Spotify.
Awesome.
Alone just in a couple of weeks. So I feel like that's a really great start, and it keeps growing every day, which is really, gosh, I'm just so grateful. One of the reasons I wrote this album really was just for myself, and if anybody else wanted to listen, I was happy. And so I feel like I definitely accomplished that. But yeah, Run Wild's gotten a lot of good press so far.
Yeah, well, the first thing you've got to do is do it for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not enjoying the music you're making, then ultimately, what's the point? Why are you spending so much time on it?
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't want to jump too far into the future, but how similar is this album going to be to anything you're considering putting out in the future?
There will be some similarities. It's funny you say this because I've already started writing again. I got very inspired by just releasing the release of this. I guess maybe freed up some of my creative space to start writing some more. So Yeah, I think it will be similar.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be similar. Maybe with a little more well, I'll leave it as a surprise.
Sure.
I'll say for now it's going to be a little similar.
We got
You
to
know, it's
focus on the now, focus on the
mhm,
album that was just put out, and then
yes.
we can look towards it.
But you can tell I'm the type of person I'm already thinking about the release of the next single a few months
But
from
that's
now.
good
So,
though.
yeah.
You got to
Hmm.
keep everyone interested, and I feel like we're living in this single to single type lifestyle of
Yeah.
music right now, where instead of just these massive album releases, especially as an independent artist, where you have to
Hmm.
keep a fan base engaged,
Yeah.
putting out one thing at a time, one song a month or whatever it is kind of the way that people are leaning.
I said if I were going to do this over again, I actually said that exact thing. If I were going to do this over again, I would have released one song and then released maybe just one song at a time. But I think from now on, that's probably what I'll do. I think our attention span for consumption is a lot, like even myself.
It's true.
I'm like, hey, my album it's an EP. It's 23 minutes long. But even for me, I'm so busy and doing, and there's so much coming at us all the time. Like
Right.
maybe 23 minutes is going to be hard unless I directly say, hey, you could listen to this on your commute. Would you listen to it?
Sure. Well, no,
But
I
it's,
have to say, like, I much prefer the EP type route instead of the full lengths because,
yeah.
first off, it's going to be the best of what you're making. You don't
Mhm.
have to commit 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, some artists loading up 25 songs or an hour and a
Yeah,
half, and it's
too
like,
much.
who has the time for that? So
Nobody.
I think the
Mhm.
7 songs over, I think it's like 23 minutes, is the
Mhm.
perfect bite size amount to really get into an artist and
Yeah.
create like a base.
Yeah. What did you think? Like, on the album, I feel like I have a little bit of variation, and I've heard some different things. Like, I actually have found, like, as I'm, writing to playlists, genre-wise, I feel like each song kind of sits in a little bit of a different place. Like Run Wild definitely is a rock. It's funny, Run Wild has found its way on a bunch of 80s and 90s playlists, which I think
Really?
is yeah, which I take as a compliment. I'm
Sure.
gonna admit. Um, but that it's because it still has that modern new sound to it, but that it's found its way there. But then I listened to some of the other stuff on the album, and I'm like, no, this is definitely more along the I don't know if you would say some of it is kind of along that blue rock kind of thing. Some of it's a little more pop, a little more
Yeah,
commercial,
like
a darker
country,
commercial.
poppy, folky, like I don't know, I think it's so hard to nail down what genres are
Yeah, I know.
nowadays because
I
everyone
agree.
has access to the Pro Tools and the Logic and this and that. And it's just like anyone can add in any sort of sound that bends a
Yeah.
genre. There's no just straightforward country or rock anymore. Everything is a
Yes.
hybrid of one another. So I think first off, being featured on any type of playlist is always like, yay, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
also not pigeonholing yourself into, oh, she only makes this type of music.
I because I think I have such varied taste in music. I love listening to everything. I mean, my roots, like I was like obsessed with Gwen Stefani, like so much that my first
Of
cover
course.
band was like all Gwen Stefani
Really? That's
songs.
awesome. That's
I
so
love
cool.
her. I was like the queen of singing just a girl. Um, but yeah, like totally, totally, totally love her. But at the same time, during the same time period, another person who inspired me was Sarah McLaughlin. Totally different genre. And
Sure.
I hope that comes through on my album too, that like I'm not just one type of artist. I have a lot of different different influences and a lot of things I love. And like to pay homage to in my music, I guess.
You do. I mean, you're definitely not just one genre specific artist, and I think it should stay like that in order to kind of hit as much of a different audience as possible.
Cool. Thanks.
Speaking of your audience, though,
Hmm.
in order to introduce your music to listeners, what do you think are some must listen songs on the album? Or the songs that most represent you?
Okay, sure. So what I'll say is this: Run Wild is basically about rebellion. It's basically about breaking away from the whatever you think you should do or whatever anyone's telling you to do. It actually was inspired out of, I was listening to an artist talking to her audience live, and she was like, put away your cell phones, and she was like telling them what to do, and I was like, nah, dude, let them do what they want. They're at your show. Like, just be happy they're at your show. Like, if they want
Totally.
to film you, whatever, just,
Did they pay to see me? Yeah, they can do whatever they
yeah.
want.
Yeah. So I kind of am along the lines of like, you do you, like whatever you
Mhm.
want to do in life, do it. And so that song definitely comes from a really, deep place inside of me to just be yourself. It's got a lot of tempo and a lot of pace to it, and it's rock, and it actually found its way also onto a bunch of workout playlists. Like, people are
I could
listening
see
to it while
that.
they're
I
working
totally
out.
see
So
that.
it's the song for me where I feel like if I could just get on the back of a motorcycle, because I won't ride one myself, and I'm not gonna learn.
Sure.
But that's the type of vibe that it has for me. It's just like, it's just living life. So I love that. um I think Holy Ghost is like the polar opposite on my album.
Mhm.
But I just love singing that song. I love creating that song. It really just touches on that whole idea of I don't know, that whole idea of like temptation and what you should and shouldn't do, and being released by your conscience, or whatever keeps you, your Holy Ghost, or whatever it is that keeps you from this whole idea of right and wrong. So it's kind of like exploring the ideas of right and wrong.
Yeah.
So I loved doing that song. And I will say, like, gosh, I like all my songs. I like all
Yeah,
my songs, but
you don't need to pick just one. And I always recommend, especially on an EP, because it's the best of the best of what you made, start from the beginning and let it flow through.
yeah,
Don't jump around. Like,
yeah,
the artist spends so much time picking and choosing the flow of the album and what should go third and what should close it up. So just listen to the whole
it's so true. It's so true. I will say this about Dig, though. Dig is the first time that I feel like I successfully achieved storytelling. Because some of this album is about me or my personal experiences, but some of it's not. Like, Dig is about walking in on a crime scene. And for me to tell that story, like, maybe I watched a little too much Netflix during the pandemic too,
You're not
because
alone.
we
You're
all
not
did, right?
alone. Way too much. Way too much.
And there's so many murder shows, so many. They're all over the place. Saturday Night Live just did a skit
I
on
think I
that,
saw
right? Did
that.
you see it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did.
murder shows. Yeah. So anyway, but it's just a purely fictitious story, because I am not the accomplice to a crime, FYI.
Oh, good to
All
know.
right, just
Good to
clear
know.
my name now.
All
That's
right.
not, that is purely, but anyway, yeah, so it was the first time that I feel like I actually accomplished the idea of telling stories, and just telling a
Mhm.
story for the sake of telling a story. And I feel like I successfully accomplished that in that song. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I want to hear a little bit more about your process. It sounds
Okay.
like you start out with songwriting, but I want to know, like, how do you know that, this is a Freyah song? How does it go about?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good question, because I did write about 30 songs, and some of them are not, my pop roots are still there, and I just don't really
Sure.
consider myself, and you can hear it, because I've gotten feedback from a lot of people. They're like, you're not really an indie rock person. You have too hooky. Your choruses are very hooky. So I'm like, all right, maybe, I guess. So
I don't know. Indie just means independent. So you
yeah,
are.
but
I know what
I
you mean. I
I'm
know.
independent, but there's this certain sound that I'm
Yeah.
finding. I listen. I always considered myself, I'm an indie rock, but I've been told, like, well, who are they, right?
Yes. Just
I could be,
critics. You could
I
do.
could be,
You could be whoever you want.
I'll do me. Um, so yeah, the process. So yeah, so I basically let a song comes to me, and I start creating around it. And how do I know that it's a Freyah song? It's a Freyah song because it is darker. Probably you can probably tell through the album.
Sure.
It's more about there's danger, there's conflict, there's things kind of running through. But I'm not sure that Freyah will always be that way. I think there will be an evolution, because I think this is probably just some of the stories that I needed to tell right now. And
Yeah.
I think those stories will change over time. I think I think there will be some evolution in there. But yeah,
Good.
for now, Freyah does tend on the darker danger, being in trouble. You know, Underground is about, you know, just being on the run pretty much. Underground is the subway system, just being, you know, on the run, trying to get
Sure.
away from, you know, so there's a lot of like conflict going on in there. Really, these are not things that go on in my personal life. So
Hey, music can be an escape as well.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get it.
So fun creating. I gotta say, it's my favorite part is the creation.
Oh yeah. And
Mhm.
hopefully soon you'll be able to perform these because they deserve to be
I
played live.
I cannot wait to perform them. I cannot wait. So like the actual first date that we were talking about performing them was last March. So it was like a year ago. We were talking about it in January, like, hey, maybe we can get a date on the calendar and let's get out there and let's try these songs. Because ideally I wanted to try these songs out all live
Yeah.
before, because they take on a different form, they take on a different life when you perform them live, and you can tweak them and change how you're singing them. You know how many times I changed how I sang Holy Ghost? That changed like 17 times, but no audience feedback. Like, it's just me
That's the
trying
hardest
to,
part. It's
yeah,
like
trying
going to
to,
like an open mic. If you're like a stand-up comedian or something, you test it out, you see what lands. But
yeah,
as an
nothing,
artist who's isolated in their, makeshift studio, yeah, you get no feedback.
nothing.
That's tough.
And so, yeah, so it was hard to, so for that reason alone, I'm really proud that we were able to like get this album out, and, you know, and that it's been well received so far. So,
Nice.
yeah.
So what are some goals that you've set for yourself for this year, musical or not?
So, you know, I'm trying, okay, musically. So I want to get out there and play. Like, that is on my list.
Priority
That
number one.
priority number one.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen. I'm in some other bands that are not original projects and stuff, but everything's booking again. People are starting to move
Right.
again and feel a little more comfortable. You know, safe precautions,
Sure.
but yeah. So second goal for this year, I would say to get so first goal is to get out there and play live. Second goal, I have been looking at sync licensing a little bit here and there. I feel like Run Wild has this potential for commercial appeal, right? I mean, couldn't you
Oh,
hear that
100%.
on like
And
a
I'm not
car?
just saying that.
Okay.
I'm,
Couldn't you
I'm
hear?
dead serious.
All right, good. Thank you. So I imagine it, and like as I was writing it too, and I like tossed it over to one of my friends to play on it. I'm like, you hear this on a car commercial, right? Like, it sounds like
Mhm.
something, you know. It's so I'm interested in the whole sync licensing market out there, just because it's intriguing to me
I
to
know
see like.
nothing about it, but please go on because I kind of want to hear about how it works. Do you like submit individual songs or?
That's one way you can do it. So there are a few different websites that you can basically sign up for, like a membership, and then you say like
Oh,
they will tell you what they're looking for. Like, so I signed up for Taxi. This is one of them,
okay.
and Taxi will tell you, hey, we're looking for hip hop, you know, song that is about this, or they want a purely instrumental, or they want you know, love song duets. And so you submit your songs, and actually, interestingly enough, um, they were looking for rock songs between like that were recorded around like 2005, and I was like, well, I have some of those
Well, there
from.
you go.
There you go. So contemplating sending that along too. So but yeah, so it's, and there's a lot of people out there who are offering courses on it. I know Kathy Heller. I do you know Kathy Heller?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So she wrote a book called Don't Keep Your Day Job. Great book,
Sounds
by the
great.
way. Yeah, it's a fantastic book. And I felt like she was telling my story in the book. It's really good. I highly recommend it. Anyway,
All
so
right.
she's kind of like a master at this sync licensing thing, and she has some courses out there and stuff. So I'm looking into that to see if that's a possibility, because how fun would it be to, you know, hear your song on
Hear
the next
yourself
murder.
like a Ford commercial or something.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
that's where the
Or
real money comes.
right, exactly. Or have my song Dig played on the next like Netflix binge series, you
I could
know,
see
like
that.
about, you know, killers. I don't know. So
That's really
I don't know.
cool.
Yeah,
I
so that's
honestly hope that works out. I had no idea about it.
yeah, so fingers crossed this is like the or maybe not. I mean, that's one thing I'm looking at. But I mean, ideally I would like to play on a big stage this year too. Like that would be
Yeah.
great. I've done a lot of big stages like with tribute bands. I've been in tribute
Right.
bands that played for like 5,000 people and it's nice, but I would love to be able to do that with my
For
own music.
you.
Yeah,
Exactly. People
yeah,
are there to
yeah,
say you, they're not.
yeah. Yeah.
Although
And
tribute band does sound like a fun time to be in,
oh my gosh,
but
it is like it is silly fun. I was in a Heart tribute band.
awesome.
You know Heart, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
I played Nancy Wilson in that band.
That's cool.
Oh, let me shout them out. Bad Animals, they are amazing.
All right.
So I only left because it was very time consuming for me to learn all the electric guitar parts. It was so much, but I loved being in the band. It was so much fun. But yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know there was such a big tribute scene. And then
Oh yeah.
I didn't know this. And people were coming out to the show. And I remember this one time I'm on stage and this guy comes up to the stage and he's like, Nancy. And I was like, wow, I'm not really Nancy Wilson, but okay. So it's super fun. It was definitely a fun time, and it's really fun playing a character, playing a role too. So
Yeah, you can
yeah,
escape from yourself for a minute.
totally. But yeah, so I would love to, be on, play my own music, be on a big stage. If ZZ Ward needs someone to open for her, I will gladly do that. So
That would be
just
pretty sweet.
putting it out into the universe.
Yeah, let the algorithms pick up that you said it and it'll
Yeah,
just magically
happen. Isn't that how
exactly.
this works?
I assume. Um,
Uh,
so basically what message would you like to pass off to the listeners here? I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I also want you to, communicate anything to anyone that may be watching and, give them a piece of yourself and what your music represents.
I don't know. That's a tough question. I think, I hope my music. I had someone say to me the other day, just that saw me in town and knows that I released an album, and she was like, that really inspired me," and that made me really happy
That's what it's
to
all
hear.
about.
I think people like to see when you haven't done something in a long time to just pick up your passion and be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And like, I hope anyone that this reaches knows that like you should and can do anything that you want to do or anything that your heart is calling you to do. You should
Yeah.
do that. Because that's why we're here on this planet, right? Is to do what our heart is calling us to do. So I say that after having taken a 10-year hiatus from writing, which, there's an old saying, when's the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. And the next best time is right now. So, and so now I've planted my tree, and I hope other people do too. I really hope that, I think that's what I'd like people to take away from the album. And, hopefully some good listening. I hope people get to enjoy it and can relate to something on the album, or feel energized or whatever by whatever they find on my album. I hope they find something.
I think that's a fantastic answer.
Okay.
And with that, I'm going to wrap things up here and just let
Okay.
everyone know again that this is Freyah Music. You can check out our all new album, Run Wild. It is fantastic. Give it all the streams. And yeah, we're going to have this ready to go tomorrow.
Awesome.
All right.
Austin, it was so great being on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yep, you too. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.